right, it's time for What's Up and About It. We have something unique happening this morning. We are joined, and I say we, I mean myself and Mary. We're joined by Dr. Aishat Ayola Oduye. Now, Dr. Aishat is a medical doctor, climate and health expert, and a youth development strategist who's passionate about public health, environmental sustainability, and policy advocacy. Now, she has over 5 years of experience, and she's contributed to more than 45 youth-led projects across 15 Nigerian states. She's really been around, focusing on climate education, plastic pollution, very important, health equity, and youth engagement. I could just throw in there that there's a sprinkling of a Yale certificate somewhere in there, you know. Just wanted to drop that in there. Mary, it's great to see you.
It's great to be here. Good to have you in the studio with us.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, so when you hear climate change, you have the conspiracy theorists on one side, you have the doomsday packers on the other side, then you have those who are praying to God and saying, it's not our time, you know, rapture has not come. You know, there's just all sorts of different things people talk about. Yeah. But they hardly ever talk about health. Yeah. Mary, have you ever heard a conversation where climate change and health were in the same sentence?
To be honest, yes. But,
okay.
Well, that's probably because of the news shows.
Yeah.
But the reality is, when you talk about climate change, it does come in different dimensions. Yeah. There's the effect on the humans, the effect on the animals, the effect even on several things. I recall there was a time flooding was rampant simply because mountaintops were melting. And so there are several things that are leading to climate change. Yeah. Recently, I even found out that the Earth is regaining, you know, itself again. Okay. I don't know how true is that.
Yeah. Well, it was happening during COVID because there was a lot less human activity involved in depleting the climate change, right? So in depleting the climate, that was causing less climate change, which is what we want, right? So that was happening, but now we're sort of picking back up again, which is a problem.
It's so funny. I even heard in Venice, you know, Venice waters are usually very murky and muddy. Apparently, they were seeing fish for the first time in decades, like fish actually in Venice. They weren't actually seeing, because nobody fishes in Venice, you know, the gondolas and all the boats going through.
People literally live on water.
They were living on water,
like
but then,
kinda.
because, so let's go back to climate change and health now. Of course, in Lagos, whenever you think climate change, you also think flooding and environment. But what sort of conversations have you been having with people of recent on this? Okay,
so flooding has been a factor, but we have to look at it holistically because climate change is not just about flooding, neither is it just about heat, right? There's a lot more behind climate change, and you've already mentioned a lot of the causes of climate change. The glaciers melting, the sea level rise, human activities, burning of your bushes, you know, that's also causing asthma, by the way, right? And then there's different kind of factors that are involved in climate change, and how that impacts health is a different conversation. So there are two different ways at which climate change impacts health. The first one is direct, the second one is indirect. So the direct one would be, for example, flooding, like you mentioned. In a case where your neighbor, right, is taken away by water, that person drowns. That's a morbidity case. A mortality case because the person dies. Now, take for example, if the person loses their limb, that's a morbidity case. So for that, you've seen how it has directly impacted the person's health. Now, the indirect measures are, for example, you have cases whereby there is a pit latrine in this community, right? The flood water comes, goes into the pit latrine, brings out the feces, and then you have an underground borehole that you think is safe.
Oh my goodness.
And then the flood, you know, takes the feces into that and causes what? Cholera outbreak.
Yeah,
contamination.
Exactly. Okay. So then there's that. There's also the increase in the incidence of malaria. Now, studies have actually been shown that because of the heat, the malaria parasites, the plasmodium, is now more virulent. Yes. It's a lot more stronger. So your anti-malarials are not working. Because of climate change, we have a longer, hotter season. That's also causing what? Increased incidence of malaria, right? So there's so many things. Even the glaciers that are melting, that's also a cause of pandemics, because all of those things have happened in 1500s.
Oh, those diseases that have been hibernating.
Exactly. So now they're melting.
They're melting and releasing into, oh my goodness.
So there's so many.
That sounds like a movie.
Talk about water, exactly.
Oh no.
But we're living it.
Come on, it's not Game of
Thrones. No, it sounds like a movie. You know why I say this? because they've kicked, well, they say they've kicked polio out of Africa. They've kicked this, they've kicked that. And then there's some diseases that the scientists have not even thought of ever coming back to life. What that have been hibernating and, you know, God forbid, coming into communities. What do scientists then treat? They just treat the more common diseases, the malarias, the typhoids, not knowing that it's something from 18 gogoro that's affecting
You know, it's
people.
interesting. I watched a show where a doctor was saying that there's a possibility COVID-19 is a result of what you said. But it was a hibernating, but I just felt, inside me I was like, this will not be funny because it means that there are several more loading.
Because you imagine that when those happened then, remember how when tuberculosis was a big disease in the 1800s, right? If you had tuberculosis, you're going to die and whatnot. So they would usually have to, you know, cremate their remains or bury them in some tomb. And let's say that's covered with ice, right? And that's melting. So they're escaping and those pathogens. Like, we're seeing a lot of conversations around that, but we can't really trace.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about ice. Let's even take it to the heat now. So we in Africa, especially in Lagos, we always claim to be very used to the heat. Like, we know what it is to have a hot climate here. People are used to sweating. They've learned to deal with it. They've got their air conditioners, fans, hand fans. Everybody has a hand fan, you know. Everybody takes ice water and all that. But at what point does the heat actually become a major issue for our health in Lagos or in Africa?
I think that's already happening.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, we've started to see an increased incidence of heat stroke. Heat exhaustion, right? And a lot of people don't understand that when you are dehydrated, you start to feel warm and cold and clammy. That's one. Secondly, you stop sweating. So you don't realize that it's actually heat causing this, and I should actually take some water because you're not sweating. You're not evaporating as you should.
And then you feel uncomfortable. Kind of dizzy.
So they don't recognize the signs and symptoms of heat stroke or heat exhaustion, which is why I like to advocate for climate and health for community members and healthcare professionals, which is why we established the organization where I work at, the Africa Climate and Health Innovation Institute. So our goal is to educate community members. How do you recognize these symptoms? Then educate healthcare professionals because they are aware of it. But we're not seeing the impact of their knowledge on climate change. Because I'm a medical doctor, I was a medical student. We hardly spoke about climate change. But we're currently in the crisis. So how does my doctor know when it is, you just give me drip, or it goes beyond that? Do you understand? Like, to go beyond and recognizing that this is a climate and health emergency. Because we did a study about 2 decades ago. Over 56% of all public health emergencies have been related to climate change. But how is that not a conversation in the health space?
I want to talk about the animals angle. Now, you know, a lot of people have different kind of animals as pets. Now, some of these animals actually belong to a particular part of the world, and then you bring them over. Could this climate change issue also impact on what they spread from animal to human? Could it also?
Yes, I would say yes, but not entirely. So it would be an indirect method, right? So it has to be, again, the breed of the animal, right? All of that has to put into consideration into what you're asking. But there's almost, because climate change or your climate is your environment and everything surrounding, right? So for example, you have a Lhasa was raised in Paris, but he came back to Nigeria. I mean, it's not the same climate. Do you understand what I mean? So those can happen, right? But we're seeing the incidents that climate change might be impacting even their own health on a different regimen and make that transmittable to human beings.
Because I know for sure that even as humans, if the way we can tolerate you know, heat, if you go elsewhere, it's the same way you struggle to contain certain things because of the weather and stuff.
So it's not just the temperature you're looking at when you travel. There's sometimes when you check your weather app and you see it's 28 degrees, but it feels like it's 36 degrees. So you have to put into consideration humidity. Right? So whether the air
might be humid.
So it might be the same temperature. Sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
It might be the same temperature here and in Paris, but the humidity might be different. But nobody ever looks at the humidity, and that affects how your body reacts to it.
Interesting.
So I wanted to touch on something now. Over the past, let's say, decade, a lot of people, when they hear the term climate change, they're like, they've come again, you know. it feels like we've just started blaming almost everything on climate change. How do you draw the line between just different weather patterns and climate change? So the weather changes, the seasons change, right? So how do you now tell the difference between what exactly is climate change affecting or not?
Okay, so you have to look at it holistically again, right? Because seasons have been changing since before we were born.
Yes.
And they've had a pattern.
Okay.
Yes.
The change in that pattern in itself is called climate change. Full stop.
Yes.
Straight. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
So if you look at it and you see rain in December,
Okay.
that's because of climate change, because the climate is changing.
It's
Right?
interesting.
Now, they are natural.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there are natural causes of climate change, volcanic eruptions. Yeah, you can't control that.
Yeah.
Those would occur and that would affect the climate.
Yeah.
But there are also human activities.
Okay.
So when you then say, oh, this is happening because of, for example, the flooding in Lagos because of climate change, that is not entirely true.
Okay.
Because there are human activities involved.
Yes.
You don't keep your
Largely
drainages
involved
clean.
people. Yes.
All right. But it happened when the rain started.
Yes,
Right.
So because of climate change, there's been an increase in the volume of rain, and then the season of rain is now longer.
Oh, wow.
So you know what I said is interesting
Yeah.
because as you mentioned December, I just thought of the Harmattan.
Yeah.
The Harmattan barely happened last
It's not
year.
Harmattan anymore.
It is not. You know, sometimes when it doesn't come before Christmas, you'd expect it before the New Year.
Yeah.
The New Year came, nothing. And as a matter of fact, it does seem like there is absolutely no Harmattan anymore because in the past year, we haven't experienced it. Maybe more than once or twice where everywhere just seemed foggy. Then the next morning, you see bright sunshine or rain.
Mary,
I didn't see any fog last year.
I didn't see.
I didn't see any fog.
honestly, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Did you feel the climate change last year? Thank you so much, Dr. Aisha, for coming to talk to us. We wish we had more time, but we actually don't. But use our hashtag #WakeUpNigeria on TVC and let us know your thoughts so we can see if we can answer a few more questions. All right then, guys, we have to take another quick break. We'll be back after this.